Hello, and today we are going to dance with Charlotta Ruth, or as I know you, Lotta. Would you like to introduce yourself? Maybe say a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I can try. It's always the hard part, what to choose. Maybe it's worth saying, you can hear that I have a Swedish accent. So I'm Swedish, but I'm not based in Sweden anymore. I live in Vienna since quite a while. And my choreographic practice has a background ranging back to having been at the Swedish ballet school here. But in the last 10 years at least, I actually work mainly with sort of choreography and ludic structures, but I do teach like dance class as well.
Yeah.
So it's like that dance is always part of what I do as well, and it's very fundamental to how I understand space and time.
What's a ludic structure?
That is my way to describe that I'm very, very, very into sort of the aesthetics of systems.
Yeah.
This is also how we got to know each other.
Yeah, treasure hunting.
Exactly. And we joked the other day that I could be probably also really happy sort of organizing, I don't know, like post at a post office. Like not every day, but it's like there's some part of me that likes to reinvent organization and how we... Like it's always quite chaotic, but very precise at the same time.
And we'll probably get into this, but like it's really clear like you have this interest, and that's where we've met. But I know you're also a dedicated dancer, and you love dance, and it's maybe why you got into those questions. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity to...
I really like dancing, but actually I like almost like dancing more with others than with myself. So good that you invited me.
Great. So what are we going to do today? You mentioned it would be in 3 parts. So
yes, and now that you say it, it's quite good because it has maybe a lot to do with 3, because it's like but the reason that it's 3 parts is just me trying to be like good in instructing, not to overwhelm you and the listeners. Even though it's super simple. And what I want to say is that I think it fits the Swedish context, because actually the inspiration for this little dance or exercise I got in a workshop with Dorte Olesen, but it was not like the environment was set up by Dorte, but it was something that Anna Persson was doing. So for those who are familiar with the dance context in Sweden, of course, these are names that you recognize. It's really long ago, but then at some point I invented this like exercise that is completely different to what Anna did, but it has the same basis. Yeah.
It would be great to speak to Anna
Yes.
to just out of curiosity, but I will do that. Sure. But so, do you want to describe the first part?
Yes. So, what we're gonna do, it's like instruction-wise very simple. We are in a quite big space. I'm not sure if the listeners are, but if you have a bit of a distance, it's good to aim for the other end of the room.
Okay.
Yes. And we're going to move across the floor. Dance if you like, but I thought it's important to say also that I often, when I sort of fool myself into moving differently than just pedestrian, it's often about like finding some way to physically behave differently, setting up some ludic structure for the body, if you want to express it like that. So what we have to do is that we always have to touch 3 points on the floor.
Yeah.
Not less, not more. That's very important to the instruction. And it means that you need to sort of plan a bit when you change. So if I repeat the instruction, it's like you move across the floor, and you always touch ground with 3 points of your body. After a while, you can start to question what a point in your body is. But in the beginning, it's totally fine that you use like simple things like hands, feet, head, elbow. But after a while, you can maybe start to wonder, how many points do I have in my back? Stuff like this. Yes.
And it travels then.
That's why it's good to set an aim, because otherwise you're kind of it could go anywhere, but you're also like more easily stuck. Like then you kind of maybe just like wobble back and forth, and with the aim you will also like that's a bit like, maybe that's also a ludic aspect. It's not about winning if we do it now together. Still, it's like you need to travel. I think this is very clear. I think I would normally ask how long, but I guess it's determined by the distance. Maybe? Yes, it is. Like normally what I do is that, this is why I said it's like I will feed in some more instructions. It's like once you have traveled your distance, you will do it one more time. Great. No, but then we come back and we'll do that. So the people at home have the opportunity to stay with the simplicity, which I really like. Yes. So 3 points on the floor, travel to a point in the distance. Yes. All right. Yes. See you in a minute. Okay, so well done. How does it feel?
It's a lot more complicated than I thought. I mean, I didn't quite grasp the thing of the only 3 parts at one time. Points. Okay. Yeah, and then of course one has to define what a point is. At one point, I think I lost the sense of my body, and I had both my feet on the floor, but I assumed that it was okay because I had my legs on the floor, and I was feeling that as one point. And then the legs separated, and I'm like, okay, then now it's 2 points of the feet. Okay, yes. And so there's something. Yeah, but that's a good. Real puzzle.
Just to say, like, I might not have said this clearly. Like, it's very important that one continuously asks oneself, is it 3 points? And as I think, what I also find important is to not have too big gaps. Like that's where somehow the planning comes in. Like so that you also get a little sort of, I have to switch. Yes.
Gaps between having
3 points and then other 3. Exactly. Yeah. Or maybe it's just one that you switch.
But I felt like I needed gaps in time to think. Yes. Like this is very
and this something also that I told you while we were doing it, that's almost why I do it, because I love the enormous like kind of brain activity, and somehow in general I think it's very interesting to watch dance when you get sort of carried along into the thinking with the person that is busy with something.
Yes.
Of course, like doing it is like a super then intense task, even though the outcome is sometimes extreme, or actually it's always super slow, for instance. So that is just to also say that if you have been very slow, that's how it goes, this dance. But I have like one little instruction how to not be somehow in a feeling of mistake.
That'd be great.
Because that is kind of, if to do it again, it's kind of nice to not feel like one is failing all the time. And that is that we add a little scratch, like as scratching a record, like so it's like if we find ourselves in more or less than 3 points, like suddenly, like I was suddenly in 4 points, even though I gave the assignment, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, like with my legs.
Yes.
So it's like, oh no, it's not.
Exactly. Then we sort of rewind the memory.
Okay,
and find a new place. So rather than sort of like skipping over the mistake, it's like going back to where we were.
Redo, like a restart, a refresh.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that is like actually that is like the only real add-on to what I said before. So if to just repeat, that is clear, set a goal, a spatial goal in space, proceed towards that goal, touching 3 points, and maybe this time we can be a bit more explorative, like what are the points in the back, and is that 3 or is that a billion, or so it's like the assignment now grows in the sense that we start to question what are points in our body. And
it's really a puzzle. Like you can't skip over something and be like, oh, I cheated. Oh, I could just continue. Go back and replay it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great.
Yes.
Let's do it. And there's no time needed. We just go from one place to the other.
Yes.
All right. See you in a minute. Okay, we're back.
Yes.
Very sweaty.
Yes.
So what's next?
So now we are like allowed to do anything, but we use the memory of the quality that we were working with.
Okay.
And we're like, I think this is almost more fun if you're at home. So we can like, I mean, we're in a quite empty space, so we can like make use of walls and floor and maybe even each other, like to have some, like to remember this type of pressure that sort of appears with touching the ground with 3 points. But actually we just explore the dynamic that was created from this exercise.
Okay.
And there's like now you are not even a judge yourself. So it's really just an exploration. We still keep a goal just so that it travels forward in some way. But maybe for instance, we go in a different direction than where we have been before, or like, so just to say. So it's nice. You don't have to do it all the time, because of course you can also fantasize pressure. Yeah. But it's just that every now and then it can be nice to sort of also be reminded of what real pressure is. And then we can look for that in furniture or walls, or if there is somebody else around, like your cat or something.
But when you say pressure, because in the tasks, the 2 first parts, there is there's a pressure of getting it correct, like there's a sort of intensity.
Yes, true.
But you're speaking of maybe the physical concept of pressure.
Yes, and also somehow how you're negotiating the switch between different points, how you maybe have to like sort of almost like rebound from one to the other, which is almost the only dynamic thing in at least how we were doing it. But the pressure, the other type of pressure, like to get it right, is of course also affecting the timing and the quality and how serious we are somehow about it. So that is obviously also still there, even though now we don't have to achieve with it. We just explore it as a quality.
Yes.
I just realized that one thing that is good to say is that since now it doesn't have to be 3 points on the floor, of course it can be sort of more upright. It doesn't have to, but it's just like is that clear enough?
Clear. It can I think you just want to say that we don't have to look like we did.
Exactly. We don't have to look like, we don't have to be shaped like we were, but really we work with the quality,
the
memory,
experience of it. Yeah, I can get that. Okay, so we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so now we are finally back and have the opportunity to reflect a little bit. Firstly, thank you so much. This was extremely interesting and challenging, but also just, there's so many components, and it really gets into a quality of instruction, which I think is really interesting. But firstly, like I wanted to ask about this type of concentration. Like, do you feel, because I know you in the last exercise, in the last part, you've mentioned how to focus on the pressure. But as I was doing it, I was really like, but there's a quality almost of the body thinking. And I was wondering, like, is that something you're interested in? And it's very weird to create a thinking body which isn't thinking about anything, if that makes sense, in contrast.
Yes, I actually found myself, maybe because you had mentioned the other type of pressure, I find myself trying out the difference of if I still sort of planned, like even if it wasn't necessary anymore.
Right, yeah.
Which then created thinking. And I think the pure thing, like if we look at the quality of thinking, obviously the quality of thinking in the first 2 rounds is much more precise and much more present. Still, what I like is also this sort of being freed from thinking, but still then explore a certain dynamic of the thinking body, which and also because I think this is why, even though I haven't analyzed it so clearly before, I think this is why I focus on the pressure thing as well, because for me that's where the dynamic is changing, like in the switches. So there is something about like this almost slow motion that is not slow motion, but it's just sort of like this quality, because thinking, planning, like,
and also
like before
decision.
Yes, exactly. Stabilizing is a good way to
just
describe
trying to
it.
not fall onto another point.
Exactly, but then I find myself in the first 2 rounds, which I then tried to bring into the 3rd round, having this like almost sometimes happy, like, yes, I switched, like, or like accidents. Like, so I think there's some nice quality in the dynamic that is different than accent. But is accent at the same time somehow.
But what's interesting is you speak about these dynamic shifts almost emotionally. And I think that's curious, because I've never really thought of a dynamic as an emotional thing. And it's almost like you're tapping into a type of choreography which has multiple actors, maybe. So like you take a real situation which is, okay, just 3 points, deal with that. Like, it's very real, it's very physical. And then you invite us to deal with, okay, but what was manifesting the response in the body? So like, as you say, like the sort of, okay, oh my God, now I'm here. That emotion of fear and like surprise maybe. And then the emotion of glee and like happiness when you can get into a position which is less strenuous, right? And like, yes, I made it. I got 2 hands on the floor now rather than an elbow and 2 toes.
Hurting elbow.
Or I saw at one point you had just your head on the floor and you were like screaming like, ah!
And that's interesting, because I think what is, of course, now that we are talking about it, what also happens is that through that last trigger or that last instruction, you actually also relive or realize other aspects of what you were doing, because you have to sort of like go back in your memory, and other things become important than the most urgent 3-point things. So this I think, and I mean that is in general, as you also know from other more like works of mine or systems of mine, that there is something about like doing something and then doing it again, but with another sort of emancipated knowledge, or in order to like when treasure hunting, I have had like levels, which is like in German we say like Erlebnis, Erfahrung, Erschaffung. In English it's kind of like experience, and then this other type of experience that you get when you do something for a long time or over time, or like kind of knowledge, and then creation. But it of course sounds much cooler in German, like Erlebnis.
Yeah. The knowledge we get through.
Erfahrung, Erschaffung. And then you can add Erinnerung, like to remember. And so I think like maybe what has become quite clear in how I structure experiences is also when dancing is exactly somehow thinking about how one can go like into something maybe emotionally, but also simply from somehow different perspectives.
But then what seems to manifest for me in like what you're saying now is almost like it's almost like an approach to art making, or art as a concept, as perhaps some medium or material or experience which allows us to work through trouble in a way, like work through a difficult time or a moment, so that then, like the way you describe, like we do the thing which is very prescriptive and then we do it again but in a more playful way. It's like almost introducing trauma in order to be able to deal with the trauma. There's something very like political or I don't know, like socially engaged in the proposal, and just the way you describe that, like create a problem and then play with a problem.
Yes, no, that is definitely something I'm interested in. Also somehow maybe also in everyday life actually. It's like, okay, this is really really annoying, and how can I go about it to maybe not like a colleague of mine called Ladaus. She was a bit sort of annoyed with me using the word playful too easily, and I think this is partly why I now say that I work with ludic structures, but it also comes from my PhD supervisor, who is like a professor in experimental game culture. So she has like looked into the language a bit more, like also just in terms of what it can describe. And I think it's like sometimes also since play is so broad, it becomes a bit more of like when it's an adjective attached to something, it is it can become more precise. And also there's something almost like ludic structure. It's almost it's not an oxymoron, but it's a little bit like, you know, like normally structure can like sound very rigid, but if it's a ludic or playful structure, it means that the unplaying or the undoing of the structure is sort of part of how things are in a way, like what is this word? Tensegrity is a word that I really like as well, which is very present in this exercise as well. Like that it's like it's like unstable systems that we have to deal with, and dealing with them. Yes, it's serious. Totally serious, like, because that is also only fun if we take it like I wanted to say at some point, like that's hard because I know somehow that you can have a tendency also, like even if you're serious, like sometimes you can be a little bit of a cheater.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, yes, for sure. If there's a loophole, I'll find it.
Yes, exactly. So it's interesting to create in a way like structures where you almost like need to cheat. At the same time, the cheating becomes part of it. Like, and that is where it turns political, I think. Like, so it's like, okay, this is fucking annoying. And there we could reflect on forever, like how what our strategies are to deal with that which is uncomfortable, or is it sometimes like a little bit masochistic fun that it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and we feel like proud of that it hurts on the head.
Yes.
And kind of when we do it together or
Yeah.
look at each other as well, it also becomes a bit like, look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's like,
it makes me think about authority as well, and we've worked a lot on authority, and it gives me the sense that we often think of authority as this stability of a monolithic sort of condition through which we have to operate. And yet, I think, like, I've been reading David Graeber and his anthropology sort of studies on early humans, and he's very, like, questioning of what authority serves a society. And what seems to emerge in this conversation is, and also in the playing with this, is like that authority is useful, obviously. Like, why would it have emerged from pre-human society if it didn't have application, if it didn't provide something? But it's almost like you're highlighting authority is useful when it is playful, or when it's it is a part of the creative process, which is society making or doing together, rather than this monolithic, stable concept of like the authority is.
Yeah, I think it's it needs to definitely be flexible so that it's reactive. Like so I think it's a misunderstanding that authority is the given somehow.
Exactly.
But if especially I think people that are in positions where authority is needed, or like where you also have to be responsible, like, or responsive with the power that you hold, then I think it's like one really has to look how the points in space and between people and the power or the pressure, if we want to talk about it, like how that is constantly in motion. So what was right in one position will not be the same also, like even
Absolutely.
intensity of power in the next. And with, of course, we know also like that people are very different to like some people want to hear what to do, others want to find out themselves. So it's a flexibility in also how to provide the space where that is taken care of rather than projected, I think. And
what's really nice is you not only speak in these three parts, you not only speak about the crisis, you know, the urgency to act and the necessity to move when you're in these positions where you have to find a solution, and the problem solving is very realistic, but also the sort of mirage of how our society becomes constructed through these responses and experiences of crisis or of emergency and conflict with like certain conditions that we find ourselves in. One thing that came up for me was like I started to develop a strategy of sliding and rolling, in the first two parts, you know, and that
works on this floor.
Just
to talk about strategies.
Also the specificity. It worked on these floors, but also when you asked us to be more insistent about what is a point, and I kept on saying, well, a body part, as if like that simplifies it somehow, but the sliding and rolling aren't perfect strategies. And then I have to start to be responsive. I love this word you bring up of responsive to authority, of my own authority, that I imply these strategies and yet I still need to be in dialogue with them. And the same with the mirage of authority that we start to play with in our last dance. I started to create fictional surfaces, imagined surfaces. But yet very quickly I was like, but there's a real surface. I was like, just because I'm standing on my 2 feet, there's still 3 points. I can have the ball of my foot and the heel and the ball of the other foot and the toes and everything else off. And I was like, then how, like when that's so realistic, how do I how do I meet with the reality of the thing? And I can imagine like you're in these structures of like of hierarchies and stuff, and maybe you're working on tackling racism or something, a very clear, tangible thing. But at the same time, there are probably real, tangible conflicts or points of friction and resistance that are at play.
Yeah.
And yet we're doing these speculative practices all the time at the same time as dealing with the intersectionality of repression and all those things of power.
Yeah, I think what is maybe I don't know if it simplifies things, but I think what becomes clear in this exercise and in some other more like systemic / choreographic things that I've been curious in, like there's this classic triangle exercise, and actually like where you try like in space with others. I think almost all of us have done it, but I only realized a while ago that it's really used in systems theory as well, like to sort of explain how codependency works. Like, so if you move one point, then it creates turbulence, and it's like, and I think that so the exercise is 3 people would be standing. If one moves, you have to keep the same distance. Yeah, and kind of exercise. Exactly. But actually, it's more like a group of people are walking, and you choose. And you choose 2 people that you focus on, and then you try to keep a right-angled triangle with them. Yeah. And for me, it's interesting to think, like now maybe I leave somehow the literal translation, but more like how, yes, if one point represents then something, you can actually feel how problematic it is, or maybe not always problematic, but just how dynamic it is. Yeah. Like and I think this is where. In choreography as a sort of 3D live tool can really be useful for sensing also like the effect of shifts, or the effect of just like as you said before, like authority or power. Maybe I felt like maybe this is a bit arbitrary coming in now so late, but usually when we do this like in the same space or with a group of people, I actually do take on like a kind of like playful authoritarian teacher exactly during this exercise, like to somehow like, oh, is that really 4 or is that not 4 points, or it's like like kind of a little bit like, or maybe it's not the authoritarian teacher, but a little bit like a playful judge that is not there to stop people, but to somehow in a way like trigger people to stay curious in trying to achieve somehow.
No, but I think that self authority is actually quite hard to establish, and by having an external authority, it aids us in learning how to be committed to a strategy or to solving a problem or being in something.
I also want to recommend that it's like quite nice to play music while you do it. We didn't do that now. No. I usually play this song from our colleague Johannes Burström, and it's very soft, so it's not like overrunning the situation. Let's see, I'm just so bad at multitasking here, maybe.
But I mean, maybe while you find that, I can say this was extremely useful for me. So thank you. Okay, this is.
Just stop it.
However you want.
Yeah.
What does the music add for you in the thing?
I think
listening to it, it's such a different quality almost actually to the
practice.
No,
it was interesting. Like the reason sometimes I also play other things, or I switch between the 3. Like it's also fun to play some pop song and then remain in the quality or whatever. Yeah. But I think what I like about that little tune is like also I play it in loop. It's very short and it has like this like like comes with its breaks, and I think what it adds for me is a certain sensitivity, which I think otherwise I'm not so busy with the sensitive aspect of it. Yeah. So it becomes like almost like as if it's an added layer of like carefulness somehow.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of layers actually, which do really affect. You were speaking about the floor, and then even just the brightness of this space, you know, the type of lighting that one has. You
cannot hide.
No, there's no hide. Exactly. I really felt like there was a exposure, and I was like, oh my God, I have to get this right. Especially when I was ready and looked at you. You were looking at me and you were like, oh, that's 4. Or, no, you said it much nicer than that, actually. Is that not 4? But one thing I wanted to finish with, because I feel like we're just touching something which is so intricate and interesting, and I'd love to go further, and hopefully one day we can. But I wanted to know, just to speak back to Anna Persson, because you brought her into the room, and I wondered, like, what is that relationship now we've passed through this one more time?
So just to say, what I got inspired by was that in that workshop with Dorte Olesen, it was like we should come with some choreographic material that we were working on. And Anna had prepared this meticulous 3-point choreography, but it was very fast, so completely different than this exercise. But I think that it was like the inspiration was obviously like the cleanness of the score somehow. And I thought it's also important to mention that I was inspired by that. And I have never like used it to set some choreographic thing, because I quite soon got interested in the sort of like, and that's very much how I work as well. Like, so the behavior of trying, and obviously this is also so long ago that Anna is doing so many different things. It's not like just like it was really just
and
like
I guess
one.
You haven't spoken to her about this?
No, I don't think so. So this is, in case she listens at some point, this will be a surprise, I think. But like even the better that it's somehow like the source is mentioned, because I think now when I was speaking as well about this thinking, there are like some dancers that have inspired me to also become so aware of how much I like to look at thinking.
But I mean, what you're raising for me is a little bit the thing of how it's extremely unique and specific. Like, I don't think I would have gone to these qualities or this question and stuff on my own, but at the same time, you only got to those questions and those qualities by being in relationship to other artists. And it's so beautiful how the oral tradition sort of actually lives with us, and it has this specificity and yet also commonality at the same time. It's both about the individual's experience and their existence within a collective, which is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to, before we have to end, do you want to share anything like that you're doing at the moment, or how people can find out about you and continue to follow you?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm doing at the moment is that I work as a senior artist at the Angewandte Performance Laboratory. So this is a platform at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. So that one can absolutely kind of like look up. That's one thing. And then I think it would be fun also now, because you've been listening to my voice, if you want to listen to my flexible podcast version of my PhD thesis. It's quite ludic. Just also to somehow say that where I did the PhD, similar to some contexts in Sweden as well, the format was up to the artist how to reflect on the art making. So if you go to my website, charlottaruth.com, Ruth is spelled RUTH, /PhD, you find it. I mean, it's really stupid, this thing to do like links on
audio, but I will put them into the notes. But I just think it's really nice. Like I feel so privileged to have you in my practice and in my world, and to be able to actually invite you to share some dance with me and to sort of hold this somehow. So
and that I had a dance to share.
Yes. I'm sure you will always have a dance to share. So I just think, to give the opportunity. But thank you so much.
Thank you.